I can think of no more fitting manga than the manga I am reviewing today to be the very first video review of 2024. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here. It's my first manga review and it feels really surreal because I'm like, wow, we haven't had any and I'm so used to filming them all the time that it was just really weird. But this series was so incredibly impactful, and like I said, I just can't think of another series that's more fitting to feature for the first of this year. And if you're wondering what that series is, it is an out-of-print series by CMX. This is my first CMX series I've ever owned, read, or anything, and that is Land of the Blindfolded. This is a 9-volume series, and it's also by the same creator of Sweet Rain, which is published by Shoujo Beat. That one's a 3-volume series, and there's like this other one. But this series was recommended to me by someone, I think her name is Carmen, and I'm so sorry if I have your name wrong and your name's not Carmen, but she recommended it in the 25 Days of Shoujo Manga event that I hosted in December, and she mentioned this series, and I was very curious, so I went and like checked out the first chapter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and like this series is amazing, or at least what I read. I hadn't read the series, but what I read was really good. It was very unique. I had read nothing like it before, and so I went on a hunt that night to try and go find it, and my husband was very gracious and gifted me the series. Well, I had found volumes 1 and 2 on eBay, and then he gifted me the rest of the series, and I'm so grateful. This is a series I can definitely see myself coming back to reread again, and it's definitely one that I teared up at the end, knowing that I was at the end, that there was nothing left, because I had basically been reading volumes 1 time a day, sometimes 2 times a day, and really enjoyed it. It was a very moving and deep, impactful series, and the manga just fell everywhere. Yeah, sorry, the series fell everywhere, and I just wanted to show that this was interesting because, like I said, this is the first CMX series I've ever read, and look at these spines. This is the same series, but they have mixed matching spines. That was something else. Shout out to a Discord group I'm part of, because when they shared a listing with me, I saw how the spines were, and I was like, I honestly would have thought this was 2 different series if I hadn't known beforehand, because I have never seen that kind of thing before, so it was very interesting to see that. But Land of the Blindfolded was so amazing. Definitely gonna gush about it today, but no spoilers, just more of how this series impacted me. I'm hoping that this review won't be all over the place, but I can very much say this series is just how it impacted me, because it strongly impacted me and encouraged me. It was amazing. But in case if you're not familiar with this series or had not heard of it before, it is about our main girl here. Her name is Kanade, and she has a secret. Sometimes when she touches people, she sees the future. She'll see just related to them, and usually it's in a short amount of time frame that something is going to happen to them, and it's going to be what she sees in like this vision. Interestingly enough, Kanade bumps into this guy here. I mean, his name is Aru. I think it's this guy right here, and she bumps into him, and she finds out that he also has a special ability or a special gift in that he can see the past. So whenever he bumps into somebody, he can see anything more or less from their past and what has happened. These two have some interesting shenanigans, for the lack of a better word, because when she gets these visions, she wants to help change the future if it's going to be something bad. Aru, on the other hand, is like, well, there's nothing you can do to change it. This is just how it is. And she's like, well, even if that's what's going to happen, I want to do everything in my power and my ability to help change it so that nobody gets hurt, even at the risk of herself getting physically hurt as well as emotionally hurt. And so begins this story of her getting to know him, them having their own sweet romance, which was so incredibly beautiful. But I love Kanade, our main girl, so much. She does not have like this in-depth character growth kind of story. I definitely agree with the creator in one of her sidebars that she does grow as the series goes on, but definitely Aru and another guy I'm going to talk about who was also in this volume, but he's just not on the cover. Both of them grow a lot, the guys do, and you get so much into their backstory. But Kanade was a heroine that I automatically super loved. When she's telling Aru, like, okay, yes, here's the future. I can't change it per se, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to use this ability where I just sit here and do nothing, that I just see it take place. No, I'm going to step into action and do what I can to help the other person. And he's like, a lot of people think that we're weird or we're creepy. And she's like, well, maybe that's the case, but I'm still going to do what I'm going to do because this is my choice and this is what I choose to do in this moment. And that continues, her actions and her words continue the entire series. And it's very moving and very touching, especially when she interacts with people who are like, this is a joke. Like, you're seriously going to do something right now? Like, what is even the point? And she comes back and time and time again lives out her words through her actions. I admire her bravery because there's one time where she steps out and she confesses basically her feelings, which was a really sweet moment. It was not romantically, but they called it a confession. And I admired her bravery. And I feel like there's other times where she chooses to be brave, even though she's scared, even though she's afraid, she may lose a friendship or a family member. She's still choosing to go forward. She may be not afraid. And long before, I guess, we knew her as a character and we see like her backstory, she was afraid of touch because she was like, if they touch me, I'm going to get a vision. I'm going to see their future. And if it's overwhelming where somebody's getting hurt, she doesn't really want to see that because she knows it's going to be hard. She doesn't want to see anybody get hurt. And so I loved her best friend who helps her to not be afraid of personal touch, and how I love even later on, Kanade says that, we crave touch. We want people to touch us. We want to touch them, even again, at that risk that something could happen or we could see something. And it just reminded me that as human beings, we do crave people's touch. We want to be hugged. We want to be cared for and loved. We don't want to be viewed as not a monster, but viewed as really weird. Like, we want to just be able to touch people, even if it's just simple interactions of just grazing somebody's hand or holding that person's hand or bumping shoulders with them. Those are important things in our everyday lives that I guess I don't really think about how big of a thing it is, you know what I mean? Because it's just a simple graze, but since Kanade can see these visions, the act of touching is completely different and is much more important when we see that physical touch. And so I felt she was just a phenomenal heroine. She smiles so much and I deeply loved her. I thought she was very much incredible. And I really loved our main guy, Aru, as well. He grew immensely throughout this series, and especially near the end, you get his backstory and it's so heartbreaking, and I very much related to him. And I wasn't planning to talk about the characters first. I was planning to talk about how this story impacted me. So I think it's just going to be sort of all woven together because there are so many different running themes through the story, and I feel like I related to Aru a lot because he can see the past. It doesn't have to be where he just touches a person and sees the past. He can touch a item. He could touch a book. He could touch this book and see every person who's ever read it. It's different for him than it is with Kanade, where she can only touch a person and see the future. And so it can be very overwhelming for him. But what I was trying to say is he lost his mom at a really young age, and he receives this gift where he can see the past. And it's overwhelming for him, like in crowds. But when it came to his mom and him just longing to see his mom again, longing to see her once more, and having this ability to see the past, he was able to explore that idea, to be able wonder if we could touch something from a loved one or a friend that's passed away and be able to be with them again. And I try to think of how to say this because I'm going to make this review spoiler free. So I'm trying to think of how I can share my story of how his story impacted me without going into spoilers about his. When he's in a moment that's so pivotal, I felt a deep just relatability to him because he is having this vision of his mom and he is trying to reach out, wants to help her so she doesn't get injured. And he's like, what am I doing? Why am I reaching out my hand? He's like, I'm stupid. He's like, I can't save her. This is the past. I'm in the present, the / future. I can't undo things that have happened. And I thought back to when my dad passed away, and I just related so much to him. I felt like, dude, you're not dumb. You're not stupid for reaching out, because when you think of a loved one and that is passed, and not as much now, but especially those early years after he was gone, my dad was gone, all I wanted was just to see him again. Like that, just to see him and him be able to see me, to relive those memories that I had in real life. And that Aru had that ability, and it left me an emotional mess, I guess, in a nutshell. I got where he was coming from, and it changes this whole idea of his gift, because many people, when they find out he can see the past by just touching them, people are terrified of him. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to be around him, because wonder if he sees something they really don't want anybody to know about. But here it is, all on display for him to see. But to have that gift viewed in a different way because of a loved one you miss was very, very powerful and very, very hard-hitting. There were many moments in this series, and I actually wish I would have wrote them down to bring with me, because I'm like, I won't forget when I go to film. Not true. That we are not alone. We've all been given a special gift, that we're all chosen, because he has a conversation with, I think it's his uncle, I think it was. No, not his uncle. It was a friend. And this friend believes, like, Aru, you're not using your gift in the right way. I'm going to tell you how to use it. He struggles with this, and he does what this friend tells him, because he's like, I have been given this gift. Wonder if I'm not using it right. But he discovers some things about himself, and through talking with Kanade, he realizes, the way this young man wants me to use my gift is not right. And he's like, maybe I could be using it differently, but I'm using my gift the best way that I feel is possible. And I thought that was really powerful, because I feel like that we all are chosen, that we all have special gifts, and that other people may be able to use those gifts differently, but that we're doing the best that we can with the gifts that we have. And maybe somebody's going to tell us, you're not using it right. And I know I have been told that in the past, of like, you have a gift for doing this X thing. I don't think you should stop using this X gift in this kind of way. But if it's making you depressed and it's harming you mentally and emotionally, who is to say that you're not using your gift the way that it should be according to these other people? And I love seeing him thrive and come to terms with, I am my own person. I'm doing the best that I can. You may not agree with it, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong either. And I just thought that was very, very powerful, and just how like I said, we're all chosen, and we all have different gifts, and we use them the best that we can. And that is more than enough. I was just like, wow, never expected this kind of message. But I will say, going into this character, though, right here, Namaki, oh my goodness, he is a very interesting character. So I loved Volume 1 a lot. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was incredible. And I get to Volume 2, very high expectations, and I'm like, what is going on? We have this guy here. Our leads are finally like a couple, but we have this love triangle. And I'm like, this guy needs to get off the page. I was so frustrated by him. He also has the ability to see the future, and he very much is opposite than Kanade and how she wants to help people. Him, on the other hand, he will laugh at things that happen. And if there's harm coming their way, he's like, oh, whatever, they may deserve it, or I'm not going to step in and do anything. And it's like, oh my goodness. When you compare him to Kanade, he frustrated me so much because of that. Like, dude, you need to change your actions, and you change your mindset for something that's much better and much healthier. And he's like, also, use this gift to your advantage. Go make some money, make yourself look good, rather than other people saying that we're weird and we're monsters and creepy. Like, forget that. Who wants that? I'm going to do what's best for me. And you could say he uses and manipulates his gift to help him seem cooler to other people, to get more money, to be smarter. But why is he unhappy? Why is he not thriving as an individual if he's using his gift in the best way? And I never thought about how different of how he uses his gift compared to, say, Aru and how he uses his gift. They are night and day, and the unhappiness is so obvious that Namaki is not using his gift in a fulfilling way, not maybe just for other people, but especially for himself, that he's not loving the way he's using it. I don't think he realized that in the beginning. That's not even something I realized until just now, just talking about it. But going back, I was saying that there is like this love triangle, and Namaki forces himself into this position of being the third wheel all the time. He makes it known that he loves Kanade and that he wants to be with her. And so I feel like in this second volume, I was so disgusted with him. I was so upset. I was like, I don't like this guy. I want him to be gone. I just don't want him there. But the creator said, okay, you may feel this way now, but you're not going to feel this way later. And I never expected him to have this hard-hitting story that just made me tear up more than once. He has some of the best character development and character growth in this series, hands down. There were often times when we're getting his backstory, when we're seeing into his everyday life struggle, when we find out this is why he's acting the way he does. I was deeply emotionally wrecked. I cried more than once. I was wiping tears from my eyes because I just never expected how he was in the beginning and how he really full of himself and he's trying to find ways to make himself happy, but he's failing at it. Only to know I could see why he's using the gift the way that he is, because of the way his family has treated him, the way people have talked to him and looked down upon him. And he is a hurting young man. He grew so incredibly much. And I think through all three of these characters that you really see that sometimes people are going to think that we're weird and they may not really know who we are deep down, but that doesn't mean we need to be afraid of other people or afraid of to making friendships or getting to know others, because for all three of them, there's a running theme or struggle that these characters have, that maybe I'm alone, that maybe I'm the one suffering and hurting, and that nobody really knows the real me. But when they open up to one another, they realize and see the warmth, the beauty of the present, the beauty of the now, of the people around us who love us, who care for us, who want the best things for us, and that ultimately we are not alone. The way that message was presented in the beginning and then seeing it be the last thing that was in these final pages honestly made me tear up, because I think it's just a beautiful exploration of how we may feel that nobody cares for us, that we could sacrifice ourselves and try and tell ourselves our lives aren't important, but our life really is important. And it was actually a really critical thing in this last volume that a character saw and believed for their self, my life is important because I say it is. Going back to Aru and what I was saying about him earlier, and he is struggling, he's living in the past, he's finding these memories of his mom, and he has a moment where he sees the now, he sees the present, and he sees how beautiful warmth is from those around us, that we may always miss the ones that have passed, our loved ones and our friends, and we will never forget them. But the people around us are going to help remind us and help us not forget that they're there with us too, that they're standing by our side. And seeing that all come together in this final volume of how these characters struggled so much, especially Namaki, especially my own personal grudge, I guess you would say. Where I'm like, get out, do not make this a love triangle. It was incredibly moving. Time and time again, that through every volume, that there was something to remind me of my own worth, of something to remind me that I have value, that my gifts were given to me for a purpose, so that I'm chosen for a purpose, that warmth is a beautiful thing from the people surrounding me, and that I am ultimately not alone. That is a message I will never tire of. And I think especially with Aru and talking about the present, I really loved that moment for him. And I really loved seeing how his family, especially his dad, was not this horrible father or anything. He's just a father that travels often, but he deeply loves his son. And Aru has a very close relationship with him because he sees his dad was there for them. His dad reminded him, I'm here. I'm here. And I feel like we all need that reminder. There are people who care for us, people who will go in the trenches of our hardships and our journeys and stay by our side and remind us that they see us struggling, but they're not going anywhere, that they're right there, that they're going to do their best to support us and help us, and that in turn, we can do the same. Kanade was told, or she tells Namaki at one point, because Namaki's he sees the future about somebody, and he's like, there's nothing I can do. It's already set. That person's made their choice. I can't change anything. But she's like, you also have a choice. Don't forget that you can choose. You may see what's happening, but you still can take action to change that situation so that it's not the end game that you saw in your vision in your mind. And Kanade's family, the way they showed her that in action was amazing because Namaki didn't get that kind of interaction with his family. His family viewed him, well, as scary and that his gift was something to be afraid of. Well, Namaki was like, I've been given this gift. Maybe I can change things, because she saw that happen when she told somebody in her family and that things changed. We all have this incredible and powerful thing called choice, where we can choose how we interact with people, how we go about our day, what actions that we take, that nothing is set in stone, that we all, again, have this choice, and the freedom of that may seem overwhelming. And for these characters, it was definitely a freedom to know that even if they see this vision, even if they see the past, they still have the freedom of choice in this moment, that they don't take that for granted. They use that freedom to help drive them forward in whatever kind of action that they're going to take. Though with Kanade, that was especially true, and seeing how things unfold. This story wove in these messages so well while having this really subtle romance. So I was really thankful it did take a large part in this final volume, because it felt very reassuring seeing these two young people that have their struggles and that they have found, I don't know what the word would be, not community in one another, but they have found someone who gets them and is supporting them and is encouraging them and is not afraid of their gifts. Like, there's a time where Aru's like, I so wish I was more like you. And she's like, no, I like you. I like everything about you. And that was a very beautiful part of the romance, in my opinion, because when he's having that moment, it was a little bit scary, okay? It was a little bit scary. And she's telling him, I like everything about you. I don't like just how handsome you look. I don't like how nice you are and how great you cook for me. I like all those other things that you may not like about yourself. That was really touching for this romantic story, and how it really just flourished for them. And just a reminder of, like, when it comes to being in a relationship with someone, you gotta love them, and not just the good parts, but the bad parts. And that love never changes when there may be things that come out, especially the other person doesn't like about themselves. We see that a few times with both of these characters, and it was something I deeply loved and very much appreciate about this relationship, especially since this series is geared towards a younger audience than myself. I love seeing healthy and happy relationships shown in manga. Again, though, even greater than happy, but healthy relationships. I feel like they have a mature side to them where they're still teenagers, but that they have like a really special kind of love that I feel like is not represented often in manga, and was so thankful and excited to see it represented here. And even with this weird love triangle thing, I mean, Kane never had feelings for Namaki, but it was so well done. I never would have thought that I would grow attached to Namaki and be happy that he's on this final cover with our leads. It was very moving of how really the writer just made all of these characters feel special to me, not just our lovebirds, but again, the character that I liked the least amount when it came to the series, and how everything just flipped on its head. And I will say, talking about the covers, one thing that's really cool is that on each cover, though volumes 1 and 2 have the same, that each character that's on here with Kanade is a different person. Like, we have Namaki on here, we have Eri, which I absolutely love. She is an amazing best friend, and I really loved how we do have these romantic moments, and we do have a lot of dangerous things that are happening, or maybe not dangerous, but working through some mental and emotional things, that Eri is standing strong by Kanade's side, and that we see Eri have time with Kanade. Even when Eri gets a boyfriend, she still purposely makes time to be with Kanade, and that they hang out all the time. It's not like this massive change where Kanade can't hang out with Eri much anymore because she's dating, and the same with Kanade that she's dating Aru. No, they have a very special friendship, and it continues through this whole series, and I love that there were special times that were just focused on this girl friendship, because it was beautiful. And I really loved how Eri, even without her knowing things, that she was there for Kanade, that she even knew if, like, man, Kanade's acting a little bit weird. She never turned her away, thought she was creepy or anything like that. It's very beautiful. Eri is an incredible character herself, and I'm so glad that she had good amount of page time through the entire series, because I really, really loved her. She brings some of her own fun shenanigans. That was really great to see, and definitely definitely thankful that Kanade has her for a friend. So I love that they had a cover. And oh my gosh, this little puppy here is the cutest thing. And I will say that I feel like with every volume, if there was a volume where I was just like, oh, Namaki, I'm not liking you. Like I said before, the creator's like, okay, you're not liking him. Let me give you some backstory. But this puppy came on scene. And as this puppy interacted with Namaki, I was like, my heart is done. I really, really like Namaki now because this dog, he just stole my heart. He's so sweet. He comes on quite a few adventures himself. So it's not like you don't see him often because once he comes on scene, you see him every volume. And I was really happy for that because he loves his owner so much and it shines in the funniest of ways, but also really, really sweet times too. So I'm glad that he had his own cover with Kanade because I never would have expected that. And I remember seeing the volume originally. I'm like, why is she holding a puppy? Because that's not usual. I feel like, especially since this is not a like animal like manga, but he's there in all of his little cuteness, and I really, really loved it. This girl is a minor character in this story, and I thought it interesting that she and Kane had a cover together, but I'm glad that she did because there were some really great things involving her, and I will say there was the trope of lack of communication. I thought it was so well done. Typically, I do not like that kind of trope, like I need our leads to have some good communication, but I thought it was really well written and really well done because I feel it would make sense with Kanade and Aru having these gifts that they're going to see something about the other person, especially for Kanade, where she can see the future and she's not going to want to tell Aru what she saw. And it's going to cause some lack of communication to happen between them because there's going to be some worry there, there's going to be some anxiety there. And I just was like, wow, this is probably the first time that I felt like the lack of communication made sense and was realistic and didn't have this huge problem with. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was just very creative in that regard and just really well done. This character, it took me the longest time to figure out who this was, and it wasn't until I saw the first page, I'm like, oh, it's that dude. He's a side character we don't see much of, so I thought it interesting that even he had his own cover with Kanade, and this is probably, funny enough to say, Namaki would have been my least favorite character, but by the end of this series, I would say he was my least favorite character. He is related to another character. I feel like nobody should push off knowledge on what they feel the other person should know. He makes some assumptions that are not good, in my opinion, and it deeply emotionally affects another person. And I just thought it was really unfair. It wasn't his place. He made some unhealthy assumptions that were not accurate, that were not right. I will say though, by the final page of him on it, I was like, okay, I think you have seen the light. I think you are finally understanding, and I'm not going to be like super angry at you and super upset with you because I just didn't like some of his actions that he made and felt it was extremely unfair for him to say, this person needs to know this because I just feel it. So like, that is not your place, buddy. That is just not your place. And then of course, our final cover, which I really, really liked. And I'm sad that I finished this series. I hope that I was able to talk about it well because I feel like there was just so many times I would read a volume and I would sit there and I'm about to go write a review on Goodreads, like a written one. And I'm like, I don't know if I can write this well. I don't know if I can reflect my feelings well enough where people can understand like this is not just a romance. Like there's a lot of heart here. Yes, there's a lot of good humor and sometimes some really awkward shenanigans, but it's a very deep story that's not just happy fluff. Like there's those moments, yes, but it's not a super fluffy story. It's truly an impactful read of seeing these characters grow together and how they grew closer to one another, but how they grew as individuals. I feel like I'm a better person as in, maybe better wasn't the right word, but I feel like a changed person in the sense I feel like this series spoke so strongly to me. I feel like it's not going to be one that I forget for a while. And I never imagined that when I picked this series up, that I would feel that way, that it would have this lasting impact, I feel, where I want to go back and reread it often and see how these characters encouraged one another because it was a beautiful many beautiful messages and seeing the friendships grow and seeing how, again, they just all came together. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I think if you ever find this series out in the wild and it's for a really good price, I would highly recommend checking it out. I really hope it will touch other people just the same way it's touched me. It's one, again, I really look forward to coming back and rereading and soaking it in once more, because I definitely feel like if I come back and reread it soon, there's going to be other takeaways from this series. And I guess that's the thing I would wrap up with. This series has so many takeaways. It's a beautiful, powerful story that challenges you and encourages you and reminds you that you're not alone. It helps you to view things differently. It's almost like we're alongside Kanade, where we have had this blindfold on. Let me show a good example. We've had this blindfold on, just like everybody, but ours has slipped, and we're suddenly seeing things differently in a way that we didn't know we could see differently because that blindfold had slipped. I really felt like my own blindfold slipped while reading this, and again, it's just something I really, really enjoyed. Highly recommend, and very thankful to Carmen, again, I hope that's your name, for recommending this series to me, because I am going to treasure it and very thankful to have it personally in my collection. Thank you again, and thank you everybody for watching. I really hope that I was able to share how this story impacted me. It's wonderful, so very wonderful, but I would love to hear from you, friends. What is the last impactful or very touching story that you have read? I would love to hear from you, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!